Here are the men. Friedrich, you've seen before, and this is Karl.
Karl Marx.
Sit down. For the League's purposes, there are two kinds of men. Men who have been hardened and forged by manual labor, and men who profit from the fruits of that labor, the bourgeoisie. But look at you, lads. You're not in the first group.
I described in my book.
You describe from the outside, not from experience.
Have you experienced poverty, prison, persecution?
Excuse me, but if you rule us out before we've even said a word, what is the point of your motto, all men are brothers?
It's an ideal, our ideal.
It's what we're fighting for.
It's our new Jerusalem.
Gott, was machen wir hier?
The League needs real men, not eggheads, trying to tell it what to do and think.
Yes, but you want to spread your ideas, don't you? So test us. And throw us out if you think we're not useful.
Well, we had to make a choice from the beginning, and I knew that that would be an impossible project to finance. There is a reason why this film is the first film ever in the Western world about Karl Marx. And you needed an Haitian to make it. So we knew that we couldn't tackle the big bearded man who is supposedly the father of all those repressive regime like the Soviet Union, like even China today. And so, because that's not Marx, that's not who Marx was, or Engels. For me, it's the biggest ideological kidnapping ever in the story of the modern world. Marx and Engels would have probably been the first to be killed after the Russian Revolution, because they were free thinker, they were Democrats, they were against inequality, they were against injustice. One of the phrases from Marx that I love, he said, the emancipation of all have to go through the emancipation of each, meaning your individual freedom is important. So confronted with this huge ignorance about their own story in Europe and here in this country as well, I had to find a way to tell the story so that at least people will listen. And I choose to tackle the story of the younger years, where everything happened. When he became, he had his PhD at 19. All his teachers would say, wow, if you want to have Rousseau, Diderot, Voltaire, Hegel in one person, it's Karl Marx, And he just reacted to what was around him. Europe was in the time of repression, of censorship, of hunger. In Ireland, 500,000 people died of hunger. And they were seeing the world around them, and they say, well, as philosopher, it's not enough to talk about it. You need to change it. And that's the beginning of this incredible story of those three young men and women. Well, it's a sort of late coming of age movie. Is young adult grasping the world and deciding to change it. And by the way, they come from very wealthy family. Mm-hmm. Marx come from a long line of rabbis. Jenny is from a noble family, middle class. Her half brother will become Minister of Interior of Prussia. Engels, his father have industries in Germany and in Manchester. So very wealthy guy. And they decided to engage in a fight. And they decided that if they have to cut their links to their original class, social class, they will. And you can see the rest of their life, in particular Marx and Jenny, was a very hard life. You know, Marx wrote at one time when he was working on his incredible work, The Capital, that nobody have ever written that much about money without having so little of it. So it's really, that's the story I wanted to tell. The beginning was important because different to your usual biopic, because I didn't want to do the usual biopic. That's why the discussion sometimes about the form is totally ridiculous to me. It's about the evolution of ideas, you know, and in a film, which is extremely difficult to make. And this is the challenge we had, Pascal Bonitzer, my co-writer, and myself, is how do you make discussion, ideas, palpable in the film, that it is human, it is real, and you can see it developing. That was the big challenge of this film, you know, and I didn't want any compromise about it. I wanted young people today to follow a real story, because the story is real. We didn't, that's the other thing. The artistic challenge was to stick to the reality and not invent some sort of storyline because it's dramatically more efficient. No, we had to find the dramatic connection in their reality, and we stick to that from the beginning to the end. Well, one decision we made very early in the project is, let's put aside all the expert, let's put aside all the interpreter, all the people who have written 100 years, 150 years after Marx, because we can't add confusion to confusion. We don't want to go into an expert debate. You know, let's go directly to what they wrote and what they also were as human beings. So we went for their correspondence. There is an incredible correspondence of them since, you know, they were even in the first letters we have is Marx when he was 17, 18. Is, you know, let's go through their life, through the letters they wrote to each other. So the letters of Marx, of Jenny, of Friedrich. And there you read something very human, very strong, funny, ironic, debate of ideas, and everything was in those letters. So we stick to those, you know, and we didn't try to construct a easy story a la Hollywood just to make people, you know, come in the see the film. No, we wanted to give you reality. Of course, in the film form. That's why it took us a long time to find the right way to write it and to find the right way to film it. But the sense of being in the middle of a battle, that's what I want to do. That's why the film is, you know, you, even though it's about ideas, but you follow it. It's a different type of drama. It's not about cinema for me. It's about something much more complex. Yes, that's an interesting question, because people usually don't ask me those questions because my film are political. They think that, yeah, it's just, you just make it. No, it's one of the things I understood very early on is to have people who work with me and that have a story with me. So I tend to keep the same technicians and collaborators that I had for many other projects. If you see all my film, either the film I did in Europe, the film I did in America, you will see a lot of names that are the same. So in a film like Marx, the set designer who have done 4 films with me, he read the first screenplay, and he read all the other screenplays in the 10 years we were working on it. So his imagination was already working. The costume designer, you know, Paul Mangenot, she did also 3 films, one with HBO, sometimes in April. She did others with me. So she read those first drafts. So she knew, so while she's making other films, she can say, well, in Italy, there is this guy who does 19th century costume. Let's make sure that I can reserve some, even though we don't know in what year the film will make. So you have people, and she's looking for solutions that are not expensive, you know, because that's the thing in film. It becomes expensive because you have very short notice. But if you have long time frame, you can find solutions that are not immediately linked to money. So that's why we were able to produce that such a production quality with a budget that has nothing to do with Hollywood budgets, you know. So it's really a collaboration of many people over the years, and so that where I can give you a very specific example in the set design. You know, if I go on my set and I see, you know, there is a kitchen scene, and usually people take all the stuff that they find in stores, and I say, no, I don't want this. I want, if he takes the glass, it's a real glass, he can drink in it. If something that goes on the fire, it have to be able to really go on the fire, because it's, even for the actors, it gives them a totally different feel of the room. They know also I give them some freedom. So if the actor at some point he wants to pour water, I want that he can do that, not having to say, oh, can I swallow it or not, or, you know, can, if I put it on the fire, will it burn down, you know. So you give him much more freedom, and you know that whatever he does, it's real, you know, it's not fake. And so we tend to work toward that. So it's, you know, when the factory, we look in whole Germany to find a real place, because I wanted a real machine where you hear the real sound of those, how do you say, those machines, how do you call them?
Like combine or something like that?
No, to fabricate tissues.
Oh,
and,
sure. Textile.
Textile machines. So, and we found this incredible museum, but where all the machines were in good shape. So that's where we set it up, of course, so that we have the right years, the right machine of the right year. But it was important to get reality as you know, close as you can. You know, that's what I try to do in all my films. You know. Well, that's the result of collaboration. You know, I make sure that really from the get-go, the set designer, the costume designer, the team of director of photography, they work together. We exchange a lot of material, even though we were in many different countries, but we make sure that we exchange the material, the ideas, and also how to find the real texture that is not like all the films today with numerical photography, which is with a depth of field very far. Everything is the same, you know, is clarity and until the end. So we had to, you know, we find the right lens. We made tests about how to be close as possible to 35mm lens material, raw material. So all this was a consistent, you know, result of everybody working in the same direction. You know, the set, the DP could tell the set decorator, you know, if you put that kind of blue, you know, it's going to be hard for me to balance because, you know, the costume are that color and all. So it's really, you need to give first the freedom to your team and to trust them. And after a few films, I know I can trust them and they know what I want. So having, you know, a few discussions, everybody knows exactly what to do. And that's the thing. They take a lot of the weight from me. You know, as a director, you need to know everything. But the less you need to concentrate on, the better you can concentrate on the actors and make sure you get performance from them. But you know you're in good hands because your team they know what to do, and they will go up to the end. You know, they won't come to you and say, "Oh, here are 10 examples. You know, if you do this, you get." No, they come with eventually two choice, if not one choice, when they know they have already tried out everything else, and they say, "Raoul, this is what you want. This is." So it's much more easier, and I have more room in my head to tackle all the problems. Well, I can only tell you, see all my films. That's why I came to cinema through politics. I never wanted just to make films or to make money. You know, I could again. I just tell your colleague before. You know, I could do a scary movie 2, 7, 8, 9. You know, that would be easier for me. I learn how to do them. No, I engage in to do different type of movies. So it is difficult, but because my elder, when I start making films, the political films were very sometimes dogmatic or sectarian. You know, they were about specific activities, action, or problems, but for people already convinced. My fight is to go where the wider audience is, where you would say where the voters are. You know, those are the people you need to reach. You know, and without lecturing them, and also giving them a real movie. You know, if you see my film Lumumba, it's a real movie. It could be a Hollywood movie, but no compromise in the content, no compromise in the ideas. You know, so it's a delicate mixture that you have to do, and also find financiers who would follow you. You know, not everybody is a devil. You know, it's a way how you deal with money. You know, you can deal with money in a way that people who invest in my film, I give them something back than just profit. I give them something that is stronger, films that will stay for many, many years. Lumumba, I did Lumumba in 2000. It's still running in film studios and festival, etc. There is a screening next week here in New York. So it's really how you find allies in the industry. Because everywhere there are people who are not satisfied about the way things are going. And they feel it in their daily life. You know, even some of them are making a huge pile of money. But that money doesn't bring joy only. So you have to make the right decision, find the right people, and find money that where they will not tell you, you know, what to do. You know, you find money that will trust you. You know, do the work. That's your prerogative. That's your responsibility. You know, don't come into discussion about every frame, every edit I do in my film. You know, and so it's a tricky balance, but it's possible. You know, and I survive. I'm an old filmmaker now, and I think that I show that it was possible.